An invitation to His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum to attend Dubai Expo is received by His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed. The COVID-19 Supreme Committee decides to extend the closure of the Sultanate's land borders until further notice. And the Ministry of Health starts vaccinating elderly people aged 65 years and above in the national campaign for immunization against COVID-19 using the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed, Deputy Prime Minister for the Council of Ministers' Affairs, received today His Excellency Mohammed bin Sultan Al Suwaidi, Ambassador of the United Arab Emirates, accredited to the Sultanate, where His Highness received an invitation addressed to His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President of the United Arab Emirates, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, to attend the Dubai Expo and joint coordination to present a meaningful program that promotes Oman's status and embodies its ancient culture and heritage. His Excellency conveyed the greetings of His Highness and their Highnesses, the rulers of the Emirates, and their good wishes to His Majesty. During the meeting, they reviewed the existing bilateral relations between the two brotherly countries. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamid bin Hamoud Al Busaidi, Foreign Minister. The Supreme Committee on COVID-19, chaired by His Excellency Sayyid Hamoud bin Faisal Al Busaidi, Minister of Interior, followed up the development of the pandemic and its prevention procedures based on the recommendations of the specialized technical team, which follows up the updates of the COVID-19 pandemic, the development of the new strains of the virus, the increase in the number of patients in intensive care units and hospital wards, and to protect all individuals in the society from this virus. The Supreme Committee has decided to extend the closure of the Sultan's land borders until further notice. The Supreme Committee also decided to allow the citizens outside the Sultanate to enter the country via land borders in condition that they adhere to the 7-day institutional quarantine, in addition to obliging to the procedures that are enforced on those coming from outside the Sultanate through various borders. May Allah protect everyone from any harm. The Ministry of Health has begun vaccinating elderly people aged 65 years and above in the national campaign for immunization against COVID-19 using the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. There will be an interval of 4 to 6 weeks between the first and the second dose when the vaccine is given, and it will take effect 7 to 14 days after taking the second dose. The selection of the target group was based on several factors, including the continuous assessment of the global and local epidemiological situation in light of the presence of the new rapidly spreading mutated strains, and the National Serological Survey study that was conducted in the Sultans to determine the factors affecting the risk and deaths resulting from COVID-19 disease. In addition to the limited manufacturing and supply resources in the required quantities within the specific time frame, it is reported that people who received the first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine during the last period are not covered by the current immunization, and the Ministry of Health will announce the date of taking their second dose at a later time. Within the national campaign for immunization against COVID-19, the Ministry of Health started the vaccination of elderly people aged 65 years and above in the governorates of Dhahira and North Batna using the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. The vaccination is distributed in a number of health centers in the governorates so as to reduce crowd gatherings as well as to apply concept of physical distance. It is worth mentioning that the Director General of Health Services in the government of Zahira received more than 4,600 doses of the new vaccine. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health urges the targeted category to receive the vaccination from health centers in their governorates. The Ministry of Health announced that the total number of COVID-19 cases registered in the Sultanate reached 135,674, while the total number of deaths reached 1,534. The total recovered cases reached 127,698, which is 94.1% of the total recovery rate. The ministry indicated that the total number of inpatients during 24 hours reached 120, among which 43 are in intensive care units. Still to come in our news bulletin. A mountain glacier broke and sent massive amounts of debris and water downstream in northern India. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. His Excellency Ahmed Abu Al-Ghait, Secretary General of the Arab League, received the credentials of His Excellency Ambassador Abdullah bin Nasser Al-Rahbi as the permanent envoy of the Sultanate at the Arab League. This came when His Excellency, the Secretary General of the Arab League, received His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Arab League premises in Cairo. During the meeting, His Excellency the Ambassador conveyed the greetings of His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamid al-Busaidi, Foreign Minister, to His Excellency the Secretary General of the Arab League, while also stressing on the Sultan's support for the joint Arab work and enhancing cooperation so as to serve the interest of Arab nations. From his side, His Excellency Ahmed Abu Ghait expressed his appreciation for the efforts of His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq on continuing the development march in the Sultanate, as well as its great role in supporting peace and stability, in addition to serving the Arab nations' causes. The Sultanate continues to strengthen the contribution of industrial sector to the gross domestic product through rendering facilitations and incentives that help attracting local and foreign investments in the industrial projects in the upcoming period. Despite challenges facing the sector, the government, represented by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry and Investment Promotion, continues to support it through establishing industrial cities, supporting national products and promote them on the local and foreign levels. The ministry continues to support industrial establishments through making it easy for these establishments to purchase their products in cooperation with the bodies concerned. The government adopted the best practices in the field in the country in value cooperation with the bodies concerned in the industrial sector inside and outside the Sultanate. Public establishments for industrial states, Madayin, managed to attract the localized investments exceeding 3.3 billion Omani Riyals through its Plan 2011-2020. The average price of a barrel of Omani crude oil decreased by 27.6% by the end of December 2020 to reach $46 a barrel compared to the end of December 2019. The National Center for Statistics and Information stated that the Sultanate's total exports of crude oil and oil concentrate by the end of last December amounted to more than 287 million barrels, a decrease by 7.5%. On the other hand, total domestic production and imports of natural gas reached more than 46 billion cubic meters by the end of last December, an increase of 4 out of the 10% compared to the end of December 2019. The World Health Organization Special Envoy on COVID-19 said today that the world needs to have equal access to coronavirus vaccines and urged richer countries to leave behind vaccine nationalization. Dr. David Nabarro said that the priority is to vaccinate first whoever is vulnerable to the virus, especially health workers and elderly people across the world. Instead of aiming at inoculating individual nations, he urged citizens to speak to their politicians and encourage them to share doses with poorer countries which don't have a fair access. Nabarro acknowledged that the shortage of the vaccines across the globe and recognized the competition and urged to secure as many doses as possible. He said it's a matter of what moral legacy countries want to leave behind, adding that poorer countries will see a higher death rate among those who are on the front line in battling the pandemic. Health workers. India has donated 500,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine to Afghanistan. The vaccines were handed over to the Afghanistan Acting Public Health Minister Wahid Majrouh in ceremony at Hamid Karzai International Airport in Kabul today. Afghanistan has so far recorded 55,335 confirmed COVID-19 infections across the country, with 2,410 recorded deaths. Through the number of infections could be far higher because many people have not been tested. India has donated hundreds of thousands of doses of vaccines in other neighboring countries, including Sri Lanka, Myanmar and Nepal. Indian authorities launched a search operation today after a mountain glacier broke, sending a massive flood of water, mud and debris into areas below demanding homes and a power plant. The power plant was damaged by the flooding in the Tapwan area of a northern state of Uttarakhand. At least 40 people who were working at the plant, and their fate was unknown. 9 people have been killed and 140 missing. Some houses were also damaged in the flooding. Officials say that the glacier breaking sent water trapped behind it, as well as mud and under debris surging down the mountain and into other bodies of water. An advisory was issued urging people living on the banks of the Alaka Randa River to move to safer places immediately. In 2019, more than 1,000 people were killed in Uttarakhand when heavy rains triggered landslides and floods, washing away thousands of houses and roads and cutting communications and links in many parts of the state. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. An invitation to His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum to attend Dubai Expo is received by His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed. The COVID-19 Supreme Committee decides to extend the closure of the Sultan's land borders until further notice. And the Ministry of Health starts vaccinating elderly people aged 65 years and above in the national campaign for immunization against COVID-19 using the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studios and the newsroom, it's good night.